Hey folks, Nick here from another BookTube channel. Today, continuing the Swamp Thing read along, the Swamp Thing number 59. I'm going to be 100% honest with you up front. I was not feeling this issue, and I've actually been dreading having to record this because I really, like, I just kind of want to skip it. I think there's some good stuff in here. Absolutely, there's some good stuff in here. And I think that there's like a sweetness to this story. I think there's stuff in here that I could see other people enjoying a lot. But I thought this was so boring. And I'll talk a little bit about it as we go through. But like I said, there is good stuff about it. First thing on the cover, you've got John Toddleben doing the pencils and Bill Sienkiewicz doing inks. I had completely. It's not that I forgot Sienkiewicz did inks on some later covers in this run. I didn't even know. I think when I first read this comic, this series, I didn't even know who Bill Sienkiewicz was. So it didn't register. But I can absolutely see it in like some of like these patches here, and like the way that the like this scruffiness is done. Definitely reads as Sienkiewicz. So that's pretty cool to see. Um, and I actually do really like the first page because there's a little gag here that I think is really funny. So this issue opens in hell with Anton Arcane being punished. His head is being used as the ball in this infernal sport. And in the foreground, we have the referee here who's got another human head, and then he's using it as the whistle. So he puts it between his lips, and he crunches, and it makes the guy go ee, and that's the whistle noise. I thought that was really funny. That was a good start to the issue. And honestly, I kind of mostly went downhill for me after that. Anton is being punished, and this demonic referee says, "Let's take a look at your niece and your brother, because let's not forget way back in the original Swamp Thing, in Swamp Thing number 2, I'm pretty sure they introduce the Patchwork Man, who is Anton's brother, Grigory." Who is Abby's father. And what he does is he essentially, I forget how he dies. I think he died by stepping on a landmine because it's mentioned in here a few times. And Anton saves him by Frankenstein monstering him back together, like stitching body parts. And he's an abomination now. And it's been so long since I've read those original comics that I forget how Abby and him like resolved that. I think Abby knows who he is when she meets the Patchwork Man, but we haven't seen him. I'm pretty sure we haven't seen the Patchwork Man since then. So we're getting a little flashback here of Gregory reading Frankenstein to a young Abby. No reason to beat around the bush. It's a Frankenstein allegory, and we're getting intercuts in these little panels here of a monstrous figure, and we're getting our little glimpses of reality. So this is his memories, maybe also Gregory's what he wishes were still true, but what we ultimately come down to is the reality that this right here is what he looks like. Some people see him playing with his daughter, but in reality, he's just got a little, basically like a mop that looks like he's made his own doll with Abby's that has kind of like Abby's hair on it, and he's just put a newspaper clipping of Abby's face, which we can see here, on top of the doll's face, and so he's playing with that doll. He chases off these guys that see him, and we're getting the intercut between what he's imagining and what the reality is. And we get the title page reunion. The writer in this case is actually not Alan Moore. It is Stephen Bissette. And I love Stephen Bissette. I love his creator-owned stuff. And when he writes for himself, I do typically like it. But I think this one... Again, this one falls a little bit short for me. Artists are Rick Veitch and Alfredo Alcala. from a plot by Bissette, Totleben, Alan Moore, and Rick Veitch. So the whole gang is involved in this. It's the greatest hits of all the best people that worked on Swamp Thing, and yet I don't connect with this much, or at least I didn't this time. Maybe I was just in a bad mood. But the art's good. Abby's looking a little different. I don't know if Rick Veitch is maybe using a different reference, or he just decided he wanted to change her up a little bit. But her face is a little bit different than we've seen in the previous issues. Abby's now working in an old folks' home, dealing with this guy. What's his name? He's a miserable guy. Gator. His name is Gator, and he's basically he torments the old people. Obviously not a nice guy. Abby doesn't like this job as much as Elysium Lawns. It's not that she doesn't like the old people. It's just not quite exactly what she wants to be doing. She wishes she can go back and help the kids. She wishes that Swamp Thing was back. She misses the swamp. So she's just kind of going through the motions here. She was able to get a good reference, and that's how she got the job in the first place. We cut back to a little bit of Gregory's backstory, remembering how he came to be, and we're also getting these are like the best parts of the comic when we get the close-ups of the Patrick Man and we see him actually like the stitched together parts of him, the grotesque Frankensteinish face, stuff like that. Like this all works. Abby, there's one old guy that she does like, this Mr. Town Clock, his name is. I think I should have fact-checked this before I started recording, but I think he might be from also the original run. I think there was a town full of clocks in that original run. I think maybe he factored into that. I'll double check and I'll let you know here if that's true. But he might be a recurring character. I'm not sure. Abby is sad that this guy's, I think, daughter doesn't come visit him. Makes her feel, sorry for him. She wishes that she could see her father, and so that's where our tie-in comes in here. That's why we're getting the Patrick Man. That's why we're getting Abby. She misses her dad. She wishes he was around, even though the last time she saw him, he was a grotesque monstrosity. Patrick Man is remembering the last time they saw each other. I think this is from Swamp Thing number 3. They were dangling off a cliff together. Swamp Thing had enough strength to rescue Abby only. Abby is also remembering this. She's feeling faint, and while she walks through the halls, she catches Gator doing something suspicious. One of the old folks has collapsed and died, and she sees him playing at her fingers there. We hear some cricks and crack noises as he's doing so. And then this is, again, bouncing back to the Patchwork Man, who is complaining about his eyeball being uncomfortable, being hurt, and it just falls right out. So that gives us also our little glimpse of the stakes here, that the Patrick Man is falling apart. And we get that even more of a reveal on this page. This is good. The ghastly stuff looks really, really good. But, all right, so this is why I don't like this issue. Look at these pages. Look at how many words are here. Now, you're probably saying, Nick, you've read all of these Swamp Thing comics at this point. There's narration everywhere. And I've said I really like Alan Moore's narration. I like when he gets really introspective. I like when he just kind of goes on a little bit. I make it a point to try to read out a lot of his narrations in these videos so that you don't miss them. But these ones, honestly, to me, just don't slap. They do not hit. So all of this stuff that's going on in Patrick Man's head, it doesn't connect with me. And so it's just reading a lot of words. It's a lot of words in the dialogue. And it just the whole issue is like that. I think it's really overwritten. And actually, what am I even saying? I pointed out, Alan Moore didn't write this. Stephen Bissette did. So there you go. Maybe that's it. Maybe I just don't like when Stephen Moore tries to do Alan Moore narration. I think it just doesn't work as well. Because, yeah, I feel like there's so many words. It felt too verbose. And Alan Moore is able to be verbose, but be meaningful and be like poetic, whereas this is just wordy. I hope that makes sense. Gator gets caught being a skell. He's stealing jewelry from the old folks. That's what he was doing to that old lady that collapsed. He was stealing the ring right off her finger. He attacks Mr. Town Clock because Mr. Town Clock caught him red-handed trying to steal something from someone's drawer. And Abby is now headed home for the day, and she gets a call from Chester, who we've talked about in previous issues. A swamp monster has been spotted in Texas, so she hops in the car. She's going to drive to Texas, and maybe it's Swamp Thing. We know who it's going to be. There's only one other character we've met this issue. It's going to actually end up being the Patchwork Man, which is where we get the name of the issue, Reunion. It's not a reunion between Abby and Swamp Thing. It's going to be a reunion between her and her father, which can be a very poignant moment. And it's one of those, and it's why I think a lot of people might push back on me and say that they love this issue and they think it's beautiful and sweet, but it just doesn't work for me for the reasons I've said. Look at all of so many words, and it's not particularly interesting in my opinion. Good drawing. I like the extreme high beams here. I like the way that the Patrick Man looks. She recognizes him. She when she spots him, she knows it's not Swamp Thing, but she does recognize the shambling form, and she recognizes that it is her father. And he's just falling more and more apart, just deteriorating. And like this right here, this is a great moment. I think that this is a really lovely moment. This issue could work without all of this. Look at how much reading you got to do. I had to stop. I sat on this page for like over a minute having to read a comic book page. Come on. This is all you need. This tells the whole story. That image. We don't need anything else here. And it leaves the Patrick Man with a nice feeling. There is a little difference here. We have her thoughts and then his thoughts. His thoughts have jagged edges where hers are kind of clean. Makes sense considering, who he is and what he is. And they have these internal thoughts of, exchanging "I love you" and "I'll always love you," all that. But he can't, like, that's it. Like, he can't continue to let her see him like this. He's just got to move on. So he walks away. She rips off a piece of him, and as he stumbles away, he just completely comes apart at the seams, literally. She mentions how we could see his feet, his hands that are just falling around, but she can't find his head. And then we cut back to Hell, where Anton Arcane is thrilled that he was able to hurt Abby by doing this to her father. Fills him with joy. He starts laughing, and the demon says, "Oh man, this guy. He's unrepentant to the end. He might be proper demon material, much as I hate to admit it. Once his debt is paid." And that is the end of the issue. Next up is Loving the Alien, and we'll be back to Alan Moore writing. But yeah, that's the end of the issue. It's. Tell me in the comments. Tell me your thoughts about this one. I think it's got some really nice moments in it. I think it's way too wordy. I don't think Bissette is as strong a writer as Moore, and I think that's ultimately where it falls apart for me. But there's a lot of great imagery in it. Some pretty good moments, whatever. You tell me your thoughts. I would love to hear it. But I'm looking forward to be back next week with issue 60, which has Alan Moore back on writing. And I think we have a full John Toddleman issue then as well. So come back next week for that one. Thank you very much for spending some time with me today. But now it's time to get back to reading.